Back at it again, baby, and we got another one from the brother Thomas Sowell. Let's dive in. Let's learn something today.
Nothing so turns the tables on critics of social pathology in the black community as invoking the painful history of slavery. But because slavery has left bitter legacies, it does not follow that any particular bitter experience among blacks today can automatically be attributed to slavery. Cancer is indeed fatal, but every fatality cannot be attributed to cancer, and certainly not after an autopsy has shown death to be due to a heart attack or gunshot wounds. One of the key misfortunes within the contemporary black community, from which many other misfortunes flow, is the breakdown of the family, or the failure to form a family in the first place. As of 1992, more than half of all black adults had never been married, quite aside from an additional 16% who had been either divorced or widowed. By contrast, an additional 16%, half of all black adults had
more than half in 92
never been married, quite aside from an additional 16% who had been either divorced or widowed. By contrast, only 21% of white adults had never been married. More than half of all black children, 57%, were living with only one parent, and another 7.5% were not living with either parent. Thus,
almost 2/3 of kids living with either one parent or no parents. And that's a recurring theme in a lot of these breakdowns or informational videos. The family structure is extremely important. I don't know exactly how to fix the situation. Does anybody know the answer? Let me know in the comment section, because I'm just sitting here trying to think, and I just have zero clue as to what could be done to keep the family structure or to bring more families back together. It's a wild statistic.
only a little more than a third of black children were living in traditional two-parent households. The great majority of those black children who were living with only one parent were living with their mothers, and more than half of these mothers were unmarried. The all too common and all too tragic situation was the teenage mother, children having children. Of 190,000 black children whose parents were currently still teenagers, only 5,000 were living with both parents. This, of course, does not include all those children whose mothers were teenagers when they were born, but whose mothers were 20 years old or older at the time the Census Bureau collected the statistics. In short, it underestimates the extent of teenage motherhood and the consequences that continue long after the mother has reached 20 years of age. Children having children is a deadly situation, whether from the standpoint of physical health, babies born to teenage mothers being prone to more medical disabilities, or from the standpoint of the inability or unwillingness of teenage mothers to raise those children with the knowledge, skills, and values necessary for them to become productive and law-abiding adults. Since many of these teenage girls are high school dropouts and are otherwise lacking in the discipline, knowledge, and maturity necessary to raise a child, they can hardly be expected to give the child what they themselves do not have.
So it's just a snowball effect. So not only do you have a child who isn't mature, because the human brain doesn't fully mature until you're well into your 20s. I want to say it's like 25 or something. I could be wrong about that. Comment below. But you have people that are dropping out of high school, which means they're probably not going to college, which means they don't have the degree that they need to get some of these higher paying jobs. I'm not saying all high paying jobs require a degree, but a lot of them do. So you have that against you. Now you have this huge responsibility. So it's not like you could even be a kid anymore. You have to try to mature and be an adult, which I think is detrimental in and of itself as well. But that I could be wrong about that. Maybe having kids mature earlier than what they should be may be beneficial. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comment section.
The tragedy of the situation is too obvious to require elaboration. As in other areas where violations of societal norms have led to disasters, the first order of business for the anointed has been to turn the tables on society, which must itself be made to feel guilty for what it complains of. Blaming a legacy of slavery for the high levels of unwed teenage pregnancy among blacks and the abdication of responsibility by the fathers of the children clearly performs that function. Whether it is actually true is another question, and one receiving remarkably little attention. Going back 100 years, when blacks were just one generation out of slavery, We find that the census data of that era showed that a slightly higher percentage of black adults had married than had white adults. This, in fact, remained true in every census from 1890 to 1940. Prior to 1890, this question was not included in the census, but historical records and contemporary observations of the Reconstruction era depicted desperate efforts of freed black men and women to find their lost mates, children, and other family members, efforts continuing on for years and even decades after the Civil War. Slavery had separated people, but it had not destroyed the family feelings they had for each other, much less their desire to form families after they were free. As late as 1950, 72% of all black men and 81% of black women had been married. But the 1960 census showed the first signs of a decline that accelerated in later years, as so many other social declines began in the 1960s. This new trend, beginning a century after emancipation, can hardly be explained as a legacy of slavery, and might more reasonably be explained as a legacy of the social policies promoted by the Anointed, especially since similar social policies led to similarly high rates of unwed motherhood in Sweden, where neither race nor slavery could be held responsible. Looking more closely at...
So it's more about the policies. And that's interesting to learn. Somewhere between the 1940s and 1960, there was this flip. I do believe we heard about that's when some of the welfare stuff kind of started. Let me know in the comment section. I could be wrong about that. Let me know, please.
The history of broken homes and female-headed households in the United States, we find that both have long been more prevalent among blacks than among whites, although the differences were not always as dramatic as they are today. The higher levels of broken homes among blacks in the past were due in part to higher mortality rates among blacks, leaving more widows and widowers, but there were also more family breakups. None of this was unique to blacks, however. The Irish went through a similar social history in 19th century American cities. But the female-headed households of an earlier era, whether among blacks or whites, were seldom headed by teenage girls. As of 1940, among black females who headed their own households, 52% were 45 years old or older. Moreover, only 14% of all black children were born to unmarried women at that time. The whole situation was radically different from what it is today. Whatever factors caused the changes, these were clearly 20th century factors, not a legacy of slavery.
So, slavery wasn't necessarily the issue because following the end of slavery, there were extremely high numbers of married couples, black couples, like you said, higher than white people. And it wasn't until between 1940 and 1960 is when that switched, and it was some of the policy changes, and you saw some of the same changes. I want to say he said somewhere overseas. I forgot exactly where he said, but it was interesting to learn that because it happened here and it happened somewhere else when also there was some I'm assuming similar kind of policies that were implemented and the same sort of thing happened. So it gives you a better understanding of what exactly the reasoning is, because it didn't just happen in one location. It didn't just happen to one group of people. It happened to multiple groups of people in different locations. And there's just one common denominator, and it's the policies that were implemented within that community or that region of people. So, yeah, that's interesting to learn about. And hearing some of the facts about the situation is always fascinating, because this is not the stuff that is taught in schools. This is not the stuff that is propagated throughout, just our daily lives. You don't hear people talking about this kind of stuff typically. I didn't hear about this kind of stuff until I started listening to Dr. Thomas Sowell. So, like, why isn't this being put out there more? I'm just curious. If this is the truth, what is wrong with putting out the truth? There should be a there should be a problem with people lying. We should be in an uproar about lies and putting people on Front Street when they tell lies and giving the facts of the situation. This is just crazy to me. But hey, I don't know. Y'all let me know how you feel about it in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, and of course, hit that subscribe button before you go. Peace and love. I'm out.